Hi everyone. Here we are in Consumer Behavior, BU 251, also called Marketing 2. The slideshows hopefully will help you learn a little bit more with the class and serve as an additional study guide for you for both the online and also the seated classes. So we go through chapter by chapter, and here we are with the first one. So the opening topic is, what is consumer behavior and why do we care? So we have some learning objectives. I always like to go over them in the beginning just so you kind of know what you're getting into. One is to understand the meaning of consumption and consumer behavior, describe how competitive marketing environments lead to better outcomes for consumers, explain the role of consumer behavior in today's business society, be familiar with some basic approaches to studying consumer behavior in terms of research, and appreciate how dynamic the field of consumer behavior continues to be, particularly with respect to technological advances and such as big data and analytics and the sharing economy, which are things that are constantly changing in consumer behavior today and marketing in general. So what is consumer behavior? The whole point of with marketing is to create value for customers. And as we buy things, it's supposed to satisfy some sort of need and that we have, and ultimately create value for customers. Again, as you remember from Marketing 1, the two goals of marketing are to create value for customers and build strong relationships, and consumer behavior plays a really large role in that. Understanding consumer behavior plays a large role in marketers being able to create that value and also build those relationships. So there's a variety of different psychological events that occur during the purchasing process, thinking, feeling, behaving, which we talk about in Marketing 1 as well. And ultimately the goal is that it will culminate or end in value for the consumer. So let's take a look at the basic consumption process. We recognize a need. A need is a state of felt deprivation. The need is expressed in a want, which is wants are things that are needs that are formed by personality and culture, and then the exchange, the actual purchase of it. How much are we willing to give up for this, for what we want? How much does it cost? What are the benefits? How we respond to it? Post-purchase behavior, that kind of thing. And then ultimately, we want to create value. So consumption is the process by which consumers use and transform goods, services, or ideas into value. So if you buy a pair of sneakers, for example, a pair of running shoes, then you get value from them. You buy a new car or hot water tank or flowers or whatever it may be, from something that's utilitarian to something that's a luxury good or what we call things that have hedonic value. We'll talk about that more later. And we hope that eventually it's going to improve the consumer's quality of life, and that's how another way it creates value. And the goal again is to somehow improve people's life, either making it easier or more pleasurable. So consumer behavior is a field of study. It's basically a science that's, as you know, marketing is part art, part science. And consumer behavior is more scientific in many ways. There are qualitative and quantitative ways to measure consumer behavior, which we're going to talk about today in this video. And marketers want to be able to understand in somewhat objective ways how you create that value. So there are also other disciplines or other areas of study that impact consumer behavior: economics, the economy, psychology, particularly social psychology, marketing, and anthropology. We'll talk about those one by one. So here we go. If those of you who have had me before, you know that I like pictures. This is from the textbook, and all these different impacts, all these different outside factors and ideas and theories impact consumer behavior. Neuroscience, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, is a new field, relatively new field in marketing. The idea of understanding how it is that people, how their brains respond when they purchase certain items or when they're actually in the purchase process, how they make decisions, that kind of thing. Sociology, what's going on in our environment. Anthropology, what it says about our culture. and economics. What kind of how is our economy doing? The flow of goods. So here we go. Economics, the study of production and consumption, and with this, there's macroeconomics and microeconomics. Consumer behavior is mostly interested in macroeconomics, how trends in certain larger economies impact people's buying behavior, and they look at past sales records and that kind of thing, and what people buy over time. So, like for example, now a trend might be how people are buying food differently, and also how changes in purchase behavior with different price levels. You'll see that, for example, with cell phones. When cell phones first came out, they're very expensive, but now they're, relatively speaking, less expensive. So does consumption increase as the price goes down? Okay, so consumer psychology is the study of human reactions to their environment. Social psychology is how people feel when they interact with other people. So, for example, one of the best examples I think of that is that when teenagers buy things, they have the cool kid has it so that they want it too, or if other trends and certain influencers might impact what people purchase. And then cognitive psychology basically looks into how people think. Cognitive is the thinking process. So consumer behavior, really, psychology is the biggest tie to consumer behavior in terms of the disciplines. So marketing, of course, remember from Marketing 1, the 4 Ps of marketing, which are the tactics that marketers use to create value and build strong relationships, are product, price, promotion, or place or distribution, also retailing. And you might want to think, so is consumer behavior part of marketing, or is it very separate from marketing? Is it a subset of marketing, or is it very separate from marketing? I tend to think it's a subset of marketing, but it's something we certainly could discuss. So other disciplines that influence consumer behavior are sociology, the study of groups of people within a society, and consumption is affected by group dynamics. So again, so like the approval of other people, buying a hybrid car, for example, or an electric car. Anthropology is the study of what people purchase, how it shapes society and what it says about society. And the one question that sociologists and anthropologists ask is, what is it that what is it when people buy things? What does it say about society? What does it say about the people? What do your purchases say about you and the way we live? So firm orientations, I would say organizational or business orientation. When we say firm, we mean a company or a business, and the goal is to have, of course, for all marketers to have a high degree of consumer orientation, to be focused on what it is that the customers want, not necessarily what the company wants, but what the customer wants. And the idea is that you want to make sure that you understand what the place of your organization or your business or your firm is in the minds of consumers. So, for example, how is it that the marketers are focused towards the consumer? How does the consumer feel about the business? So, one example you could look at is, what type of business is it? For example, the Department of Motor Vehicles versus a high-end hotel. So, Department of Motor Vehicles is something most people have to use the DMV, whether it be for a license or for registration of the car, or just getting identification. It's a societal need. It functions as a societal need. So maybe the level of marketing and customer service they provide doesn't have to be as high because they have a built-in audience, as opposed to, say, a high-end hotel, where not everyone necessarily is going to participate in commerce with a high-end hotel, and so people are going to have the high-end hotel is going to approach marketing a little bit differently than, say, the DMV is going to. So there's also the idea of stakeholder marketing. Stakeholders, you remember from Marketing 1 and also some of your other classes as well, management, certainly, stakeholders is anyone that has any kind of interest in the product. So it could be, it's not just the buyer and the seller, but other customers, your employees, suppliers, owners, people in the community, regulatory agencies, media, trade organizations. They all are interested, all stakeholders are interested in your product because it will somehow impact them. in some way. If you produce a quality product, it conceivably could make society better. If you could produce a defective product, then it could harm society. Okay, so relationship marketing. Again, I'm going to say this over and over again. The two goals of marketing are to create value for customers and build strong relationships. So the idea is that you want to participate in activities that will enhance the business through repeat business. If you have a relationship with someone, chances are they're going to come back. And one thing that marketers really focus on is the idea of touch points, and it's the direct contact between the firm and a customer. So what customers, when you go in there, customer service, what are your salespeople like? If you call on the phone, how is it that people are going to, how does the firm respond to customers, that kind of thing. And there are a variety of different ways to make contact with customers, phone, email, text messages, social media, networking, face-to-face contact, all those things. So consumer behavior is really important because it helps helps firms, organizations, businesses determine what kind of marketing strategy they're going to have. We talked about marketing strategy, differentiated, undifferentiated, mass media, mass marketing would be undifferentiated, differentiated segmented marketing, niche marketing, or local marketing. So it helps to understand that, so understand how you're going to approach the customer. So here we go. So with the idea of the more resource advantage theory is that it could say that some companies succeed because they have enough resources to pour into marketing, or they fail because they don't have enough. It's, you can talk about that in a variety of different ways. There are some companies that don't really have a lot of resources, but because of high quality product or high quality customer service, they flourish, and they eventually do get the resources that they need. And it's really, or in the reverse of that is a company can have a lot of resources but not really know how to approach things. And that's something that depends upon the size and the age and the outlook of the organization. So you want to have some sort of product that provides the consumer with a bundle or a grouping, if you will, of benefits that will make the customer want to come back. And the attribute is the special part of the product that the customers really respond to. So, say at a hotel, free breakfast or Wi-Fi or parking or a swimming pool, whatever it may be. I remember we talked about in Marketing 1, we talked about the actual product and the augmented product. This is kind of the same idea. So again, it's something we talked about in Marketing 1, this idea of what makes an innovation successful, what makes it that people want to buy the product, buy a new product. The relative advantages, how much better is this product over the last product? How much better is the car coming out this year than last year's model, the new cell phone, a new running shoe, why is it better? What is it going? How is it better than what we had last time? Simplicity, how easy is it to understand and to use the product? Observability, can you actually see the benefits of the product? Trialability, trying the product out before you buy it. If you think of, say, go to a grocery store, Costco or some place like that, and they got samples of a product, a new food product, or you can test drive a car or try on a pair of shoes, whatever it is. And then consistency, how much does the new product that you're offering align with people's lifestyles and needs? So we talked about this a little bit a minute ago. Different types of different marketing strategies. Undifferentiated is there's just one segment. It's also referred to as mass marketing. Differentiated marketing or segmented marketing lets different products serve different segments. So one product might serve people in rural areas, one product might serve people in urban areas, or you might look at it in terms of gender differences or age differences or life cycle differences, that kind of thing. And then niche marketing is you have a very small product, a very small group of people, very, very small segment that you go after. One could argue that, say, Whole Foods would be niche marketing, that they're going after a larger segment of a smaller portion of the population that's interested in certain types of foods. So, what are the effects of consumer behavior in society? We talked about this a little bit before in terms of anthropology and sociology. So, what is it that the products that we buy say about our society? And in reverse of that, the products that we buy influence society. So again, now trends with green marketing and green retailing, and things are going to reduce our carbon footprint. What does that say about things? Also, customs, rituals, and attitudes also impacts what people will buy. So every country, every society has different traditions. So, for example, Mother's Day. It's popular to buy flowers for Mother's Day, or what we eat. At Christmas time, people might have turkeys or ham or that kind of thing. So, what is it that the products that we buy and how we purchase them, how does that shape society, and also how does society shape what we purchase? What is it that we have certain customs, again, in each society that are different. Someone gets married, and some cultures might just give money, some cultures will give things for the home, that kind of thing. So there are some ways that consumer behavior can impact individuals. One is in terms of poor budget allocation. Certainly, the rise of consumer debt. How we feel emotions when we purchase things. Does buying a new sweater make someone feel good? How is it that what other people are buying influence what we're going to buy? Certainly you could look at the change in communication technology, that now you need to have computers and laptops and tablets in order to keep up with society. What are the environmental effects on consumer behavior in terms of what's going on, not just in the environment, like meaning the weather, but also the economy and social changes? And then avenues for seeking redress for unsatisfactory purchases. That's the idea of post-consumer behavior. We talked about that in the again in Marketing 1, the idea of buyer's remorse or cognitive dissonance. Are there ways? And also, are there ways to protect safety protections for customers? Are there warranties? That kind of stuff. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple different approaches to studying consumer behavior. When we talk about research, the first one is this idea of interpretive research or qualitative research. Basically, that includes talking to people and understanding why people make decisions. You see focus groups, that kind of thing, and interviews, focus group interviews. How that research is interpreted depends upon who's interpreting it. We all have some kind of bias. Even researchers for qualitative research have a bias. So, for example, if you're interested in getting into a new market and you are a food distributor, or you have a food product, how is it that families make decisions in terms of what they're going to buy, when they're going to buy things, who makes the decision, that kind of thing. So they go and they talk to researchers. Will go in, interpretive researchers or qualitative researchers will go in and actually talk to the consumer, and again, how it's determined is based on the researchers themselves, how it's interpreted. So there are a variety of different methods to interpretive research. Phenomenology, study of consumers that relies on interpretation of their lived experience associated with some aspect of consumption. So how do people spend their day-to-day lives? Ethnography looks at how different people's ethnic backgrounds to see how they might purchase things. And ethnography refers to people's online cultures and communities and how they respond to things. So user groups, online user groups, and that kind of thing. So it's the idea of how, because of social interaction, whether it's depending on different types of social interaction, how it's going to influence the interpretive research. Next is quantitative research. It's just plain old math. Surveys and that kind of thing, some kind of numerical measurements, asking, raw data of how much do people spend on products, how often do they buy products. It's not researcher dependent, and it's a better way. It's more scientific, so you can test hypotheses if you're trying to figure out, say, how much does the, people who live in areas with 4 different seasons, how does that impact their consumption of, say, certain types of clothing products or food products, that kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily require a lot of deep interpretation. It just gives some structure to what people are buying, what it says about what people are buying or interested in buying. So this is, again, a nice little chart from the book, and comparing quantitative and qualitative research. So you see the qualitative on the left, quantitative on the right, and you can go through observation and interpretation. There's different types, unstructured free forms. The researcher really is very involved. They might have small samples in natural settings, different types of exploratory research to understand things better, looking for new ideas, that kind of thing. Whereas the quantitative really is like measuring and testing and looking at sample sizes and cause and effect and that kind of thing. Okay, so the one thing that's important to understand is that consumer behavior is dynamic. And when we say dynamic, we mean it's ever-changing. We are, as a society, ever-changing, and what we are looking for is ever-changing. And it's just really the nature of, that's the nature of the world. So in terms of looking at things in an international scope, companies have to look at geographical changes and cultural distances, whether it be even within the United States or outside of the United States. People respond to things differently, and how consumers perceive a product will determine the success or value of the product. So how they view food, how they view, furniture for their home, how they view transportation, that kind of thing. And because of technology, geographical distance has completely changed, and to a certain extent, it's not as important. I mean, there certainly are still things that we have to think about because cultures change from place to place, but the human experience, generally speaking, is the same across all cultures, and how we experience and feel things is similar. It's just our attitudes about them might change. So again, technological advances, the big data, changing communications, in terms of how we communicate with each other now across instantaneous communication through the internet. Big data is a major player in marketing. That every time we swipe a card or walk through a door or whatever, people know about what we're doing. There's all sorts of data that's going on. Predictive analysis also is a very, very important part of marketing. Anyone who is logged on to Amazon, and it tells you products you might be interested in. You might be scrolling through social media, and you'll have the products that are they think are geared towards you and your specific needs or interests, and this idea that it's going to predict human behavior, it's going to consumer behavior, how our interests and previous purchases will predict future purchases, and how we behave as a consumer. How long it takes us to make a decision, how many places we research things, that kind of stuff. Okay, so there are also some changing demographics that are going to influence consumer behavior. One is the changing of household income and household living patterns, changing family size. So as household income, we have 2-income houses now, or 2-income families, living patterns in terms of how people live on a day-to-day basis, single-parent households, 2-parent households, single people living alone, people living in groups, family size is decreasing. All those kinds of things are going to impact how people purchase things. And then worldwide population trends in terms of, some cultures are sort of the population is holding steady, and in some cultures, population is growing. That's going to impact whether or not how much marketing and the company might look into for a certain area. And then changing economy, unemployment issues, workforce prospects, wage opportunities, all kinds of things. So consumers tend to be cautious about expenses, so they really respond favorably to price-cutting policies. Anyone who's gone through a recession or an economic downturn or a layoff might respond differently to purchases than other people. And also this idea of the sharing economy, Uber, Lyft, that kind of thing, the bike sharers, that kind of stuff, those kinds of things are also influence the economy. That people are particularly popular with younger generations. This idea that people might not buy one thing for themselves, but instead share it with other people in the economy, also going to contribute to marketers and their approach. Okay, so that's a summary on this for this chapter. Consumer behavior is a set of value-seeking activities, and we want to look at the different marketing strategies. We want to look at qualitative and quantitative research approaches, and again, because the things are constantly changing, there's this dynamic, the dynamics of our changing environment with the technological, demographic environment, sharing economy. Demographics, of course, are objective ways to measure population in terms of age, gender, race, income, education, background. We talked about that in Marketing 1. And then competition is very positive because we hope it will drive firms, organizations, marketers to have a more consumer orientation and to offer better prices and also offer higher quality product. Okay, so that's it. Thanks, guys.